The 2022 Strat-O-Matic Ratings Extravaganza continues with the National League Central. Diamond Diehards is on. Yadier Molina's a 2 at catcher in his final card. And I start the show with that because I wanted to surprise Jerry Milani and the dog Jeff Healy, and they're looking around like, wait a minute, where's the usual intro? Because I usually get the message from Dawg. We're on like a 4-hour pace for the show, so could we speed it up? Anyway, it's Diamond Diehards annual Strat-O-Matic Ratings Bonanza, the NL Central coming at you. And of course, as we mentioned, Strat-O-Matic insider Jerry Milani, our pal, joins us for the 6-part series along with the dog Jeff Healy. So we dive right into it. Yadi, the gets the 2. He also spent time at first base. He gets a 4 over there for his final card. But what's also is interesting to me is the guy that they get to replace him, Wilson Contreras, moves over from the Cubs, where he was a 2. Now I wish we kind of had the catcher arms here that would kind of maybe tell the story a little bit better. But Dawg, it's like you look at it from afar. And you're like, how do the Cardinals just do this? Like, how do they replace Yachty with like the other Yachty, you know?
They always find a way. They're such a well-run organization. It really stands out. So,
Jerry, is this are you in agreement that it's like, how did they, like, of all places for Wilson Contreras to go, like it's a Cub, leaving to go to the Cardinals, but it's not just that. It's like he replaces the guy who's been a mainstay in St. Louis for 20 years.
And he feels like the right fit, doesn't he? Like everything you know about Wilson Contreras, that you hear about Wilson Contreras, is he's going to fit perfectly into that. It's more than fitting into the lineup. I went to a couple games there this year, and I spent some time hanging out in kind of that Cardinals kind of zone they have outside, and just the fandom. And it was it was fun to see. It's a small town, big city, right? St. Louis is different than I think a lot of the cities, and the way they embrace their players, I think that Wilson Contreras is going to fit perfectly into that whole paradigm that they have going on there.
And our pal Butler Miller out in St. Louis, I'm sure he gets the shout out because he's always a guy who supports us. His St. Louis Cardinals, he always gives us a little insight. I'm sure he approves of
the hat they gave away that day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So
kind of like a Yadi Molina hat. It's the Yadi Molina hat. I should have worn this to start.
Yeah. Well, now it's even better because we were able to make a spectacle of it. And if you're just listening, then go check out the video on YouTube or elsewhere. Go to youtube.com/@and Diamond Diehards, and you'll get us. We got the handle now. Dawg is like, Rizzo, just hurry up and get to Omar Narvaez. Like, I know he was on the Brewers last year, but what was he for what is the Met newest guy to help out behind the plate?
We moved 1-2 out and brought another 2 in. So pretty good, actually. I didn't realize he was as good a catcher as he is. So So hopefully he makes contact. We'll never split the batting average, but good. Another good defensive catcher. You can never too many good catchers. So it's good to have him pair him with Nito. Should be a good bridge to Alvarez.
And you now have the lefty bat. So you kind of trade the right-handed McCann for the left-handed Narvaez. I'd say McCann probably still is a little bit better overall behind the plate, but Narvaez is pretty good. I've liked him for a long time. He's kind of like a flown under the radar kind of guy. And he kind of bounces around, but I'm surprised that he hasn't stuck more, especially a left-handed stick behind the plate who's pretty good defensively. You'd think maybe, everybody's always looking for so much power. He's not as much that guy, but he's still a pretty solid catcher. Yan Gomes, the other side of the Cubs way to get through 2022. Also gets the 2 back there, and Roberto Perez from the Pirates gets a 2 as well, even though he's an additional player. And the rest of the crew back there is either 3s or 4s. Josh Van Meter from the Pirates, for his time behind the plate, got the 5. I think he only caught a few innings in an emergency type situation, more of like an infielder kind of guy, but somebody who pitched in gets the 5 behind the plate. So if you ever wanted to throw him in there as a utility guy at the bottom of your roster in mixed kind of strat leagues, he's one of those guys who has the number, as we like to say. PJ Higgins, also from the Cubs, he's a 3 behind the plate. It gets a 3 at first and a 4 at third. So again, these are guys for like the bottom of your roster if you're in these mixed kind of leagues. Anybody else that we missed that was kind of important? I don't think so. I think we got pretty much all the I think we got all the regulars over there. Austin Romine, maybe from the Reds, was he gets the 4, that's a little harsh. I thought he's kind of probably better than that, but he'll live. On to the first baseman, gentlemen, shall we?
Sure. Rizzo, I gotta say, on the first thing I noticed on this, freaking everyone's got first base numbers. in the NL Central. 39 guys got first base numbers.
Wow. That is
unbelievable.
A lot.
And not too many got really good first base numbers, though.
Yeah.
You can take the reservation. Can you keep the reservation?
Yeah.
Good call. I like that, Jerry.
So Jerry, with the Cardinal hat on, why don't you reveal there was only one player above a 3 in the NL Central in the Strat ratings this year, and it's
Goldie. I mean, you talk about a reason why he was so heralded during the season with the MVP season is that in addition to being the kind of offensive force he was, I know he struggled a little in the very end of the year. I mean, you watch him play defense, and he's clearly not only is he clearly the best defender in the division, but by now 1 and 3 margin, this really delineates how he's so much better of a defender than anyone else in the division.
Yeah, this is just a culmination of it, right? Like, I mean, he's been so good for so long. He gets the MVP, and of course, like, it's a fait accompli that he was going to hold on to the 1. But the fact that there's not even a 2 in the rest of the division, it's that tells you all you need to know. Dawg, I had to use by the way, compliments to the Dawg, who has taken the spreadsheet from Strat-O-Matic, which is it's so we're so gracious to our friends over at Strat, for having Jerry help us out, but also for giving us this info that we could pass along to you while you wait for the cards to be out there. And we always say cards. We know most people are probably playing on the computers these days, but the cards are still the cards, right? Dawg did an incredible job with his like fixes to this spreadsheet. It's like made it so easy. I would never be able to do the show if not for you doing this, Dawg. So thank you. As
to say in analyst land, I'm a freak in the sheets.
Yeah, he is.
It was my understanding there would be no math.
Yeah. In other news, Dawg has 6 kids.
I'm good at Excel too.
More on that later.
Oh my God. We didn't even rehearse this. This is just like,
wow, Tyler Stevenson gets a 4.
Yeah. So Dawg, another thing that I just did here and maybe I might just do this for the rest of the thing. We've been talking about the computer players and the additional players. I sorted those out just to put the regular players at this point, because
I started playing around a little bit with that too. I wasn't sure if you wanted to go that way or not, but
it's
probably a smarter way to go, actually.
I think maybe we're gonna have to stick to that if we want to keep these episodes under an hour, so our audience can palate it. There's not even that many 3s. PJ Higgins, we talked about him. Jace Peterson for his time over there, which he's so good on the other end of the infield. I don't know why you ever end up with him at first, but he plays everywhere. He gets the 3. Michael Chavis the Pirates were expecting, I think, much better things from him. And, like a guy who was kind of held up there in Boston. A lot of people thought he was going to break out. At least he gets a 3. He didn't hit the way they wanted him to. Matt Reynolds, Mike Brosseau, and Patrick Wisdom for his side on that side of the infield. Usually he's a 3rd or in the outfield for the Cubs. Those are your only 3s. Everybody else is a 4, like Jerry said. Tyler Stevenson, wow, like it's a 3 a catcher, but a 4 at first. Victor Caratini is a defensive catcher. Why are you playing him ever at first? I don't know. That must have been something messed up.
And I think the other notable one there is Joey Votto with the 4. 3 basic, but Joey Votto, I mean, he's on a Hall of Fame track, depending on who you kind of talk to and think about, and depending on who else might be on the ballot in 7 years or 8 years, whatever number of years it is when he finally is up for it. But he gets the 4 now. I don't know. His card is probably one that's not going to be that playable anyway this year for a lot of leagues. But I feel like if you're playing the season out, he's still the Reds' first baseman.
Actually, I think that I missed one here because Albert Pujols still with the 4.
Yep.
They didn't move him down to a 5, but he actually ended up playing more. And well, I mean, his hitting card is going to be good.
Yeah.
But
he'd definitely be playable in Strat.
As a 4, yeah, he's playable. If he was a 5, maybe not so much. But also, a couple I missed because of the basic sorts. When guys have a different rating, we're given the advanced ratings. In the basic rating, sometimes it's different. In the case of Rowdy Tellez, he's one of those guys. I missed him. He's one of the 3s, and he's a real playable guy from Milwaukee. So I did miss him. Frank Schwindel from the Cubs is a 4 as well. There's first base is interesting. And for a bunch of different reasons there, not just for Goldschmidt. So sort of pleasantly surprised by first base in the NL Central. We move on to second, and no ones, but only 1-2, Dawg. It's the versatile Tommy Edman from the Cardinals.
Yeah, and Colton Wong's got another weird Split-O one, right? So he got a 2. He's a basic 3 for Milwaukee as well. And Wong's a pretty good fielder, so that again kind of holds up to what I saw. So those guys playing and stuff, but yeah, once again, kind of a downer for the division. That's pretty weak in terms of defense.
Yeah, and I think that you're held down here, right, by the non-Cardinal teams. I mean, the Brewers are, they have a couple of guys here and there. They don't have too many awful fielders, but they don't really have as many great ones as the Cardinals might be unmatched. Good job picking up Wong there. Yeah, again, I gotta look at these things all the way before I'm firing them off. But Brendan Donovan, I believe, was the Gold Glove utility guy. Was he not in the National League? Somebody look that up for me.
We'll look that one up.
He's a 3 at second. He's one of the guys that's a 4 at first. He's a 3 at third, a 4 at short.
Yeah, he did win the Gold Glove. And he was the 3rd place for Rookie of the Year.
That's ridiculous.
So
that's ridiculous. He got over Gourmet. That's absurd.
Yeah, I mean, so he wins it at utility, but he's a 3 at second, third, and right field. He's got a +1 arm in the outfield, and he's a 4 at first, short, and left. So Strat
had it right.
So here's the thing, right? Strat, if you don't play it and you're just kind of new to this whole thing, you're like, how could it be? It's ridiculous. How could a guy win a Gold Glove and not be at least a 2 somewhere? Well, Strat doesn't just look at somebody who won a Gold Glove and anoint them as a 1. We've seen a few guys here that have won Gold Gloves and have been a 2 or even a 3. And, Brendan Donovan certainly has versatility. The only things he doesn't have on his card are center field and catcher. So from that standpoint, he was a very valuable player. He did probably play most of his innings at second, but he's not even the best second baseman on his team in terms of defense. Tommy Edman is, but Tommy Edman probably played more at short this year. So it's kind of interesting the way Strat does it. And Strat players, I think, Jerry, like really appreciate that instead of like railing against it. Would you agree?
It depends on which Strat players and what kind of railing. So, Tommy Edman is one of the guys who we posted as when we did the preliminary posts back a couple weeks ago, when we were doing one a day from a team, then mixing in a guy. And we did Edman, and we mentioned his shortstop. He actually ended up, even though he played mostly shortstop the second half of the year, playing a little bit more. He played a little more innings at shortstop, and he played a couple more games at second base total, but it was almost right down the middle innings. We had him at a 3 at short, not to jump the gun too much on him, and a 2 at second base. And we got a lot of feedback from fans. St. Louis has, that baseball fandom. And I think, if you were to split up what kind of fans are Strat people, you've got Yankees and Mets, just because I think they have the most fans anyway, and Dodgers and Cubs. But then the Cardinals are probably in the top 3 of fandom within the Strat-O-Matic world. So we took some discussion. We took a little bit of heat for that. I think that people get it if you play a lot, but I think those fans, or the big Cardinals fans, are like, how can you make him a 3? How can you make him the same as somebody else? So and so. And there's a lot of depth to it, and there's a lot of discussion among folks to kind of get the rating they think is going to be the best and most accurate. And again, there's a lot of not as much nuances between 1, 2, 3, 4. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are your choices. And within the context of the team and that game, when you're playing your game yourself and you're playing as the Cardinals, maybe you play Edman at second, but maybe you move him to short. Just depends on how you look over the entirety of the roster.
It's a very good description. I really like the way you put that, because it is something that comes up if you've played in Strat leagues. It's an inevitable discussion. Like it's every Strat league I ever played in. Like back when Jeter was winning Gold Gloves at shortstop, but he was like a 2, or he was a 1 and he didn't win a Gold Glove. Like, and people are like, Jeter's a 1, how is a 1? Like it was. The fielding ratings are, listen, that's why these shows, while we're doing separate episodes, they do well, because these are really good debates. It's like literally inside baseball, right? Because we're talking about actual baseball, and it's relation to Strat-O-Matic. The super rookie for the Cardinals, Nolan Gorman, gets the 4. We'll see how that pans out over time, because he certainly looks like the guy that's going to be there and be at that position for a while. Jonathan India, the 2021 Rookie of the Year from the Reds, is a 4. Jerry, was he even a 4 last year, or did they give him the 3? I don't think he was higher than that in his Rookie of the Year
I think he was
season.
A 4 also last year. I'll check on it, but I'm pretty sure you're right. He was also a 4.
I don't know. I Jonathan India, like as like a real life guy, he's a beacon. That guy, I just like so much.
No, he was a 3 last year. He was a
3.
He was
17.
Okay. Yeah.
So India falls from a 3 to a 4 in the sophomore slump, but like a real good dude. He's going to pick up the torch there where Votto's going to leave it off. Just an excellent guy. Just go look up like Jonathan India videos, and you'll see like his work with kids and stuff. Real good. So from that, like just for that, like it has nothing to do with Strat. Like I would have given him a 3. He's a good guy for 3. You gotta give him a guy. He's a good guy. Yeah. So let's see. Was there any of the other regulars there? No, the guys are well. Keston Hero, we could talk about him. I mean, he really moved over from second base to first mostly. He still got second in there, but at least he looks like he was able to kind of resurrect his falling career this past season for the Brewers. So Keston Hero still doesn't get the 5 at second. I thought he might have been in for one of those. Gets the 4, and he's also a 4 at first. So we mentioned Keston Hero over there. Dawg, we go to third, and to nobody's surprise at all, Nolan Arenado maintains his absolute lock on the 1. I think he got the platinum glove in the National League again as well, which is for best overall fielder. Jose Trevino in the American League, the Yankees catcher, got it. The other one has a familiar name. Dog.
Brian Hayes. So yeah, good player. Obviously one of the best guys for the Pirates, the long-suffering Pirates, who continually bring up good folks and see them head off to other lands. So I think he's working that already. But yeah, he's the player that they've been waiting for, and they finally got him there.
And I was trying to throw it to you first, Dog. So I'm figuring that in the background, Jerry is leafing through the old, the 1990s sets to see his daddy, Charlie Hayes, to see how many times he was a one. I don't remember offhand. He had to have been a one at least a few times because he was an incredible fielder as well. Is that what you were doing? I saw you trying to work on the computer there. I was trying to buy you extra time for Charlie Hayes.
Yeah, trying to figure out, what year he might have drawn that one. He came over to the Yankees a couple of different times. Remember, he was there
in 90.
Before, he was before they won the World Series, and then they brought him back. He was a the World Series year.
He had to be with the Phillies.
Dig around. I think with the Phillies, maybe. Yeah,
Rockies.
In that time frame, he might have done that. We'll have to dig a little more and find on that. But yeah, I mean, how often does a father-son combination, same position and same profile, at least a fielding profile? I mean, Vlad and Vlad Jr., they have the same name, but they profile differently as hitters, I think, and differently as players, certainly from outfield to infield. But, Brian Hayes fits nicely into third base there. And I wish the Pirates were better. I just wish the Pirates were better. Like they play in one of the three most beautiful parks I've ever been to. It's just great where they play. And, the fan base will be there if they win. I know it's a football town, but when they win, they get pretty good support. Yeah, so he's going to be hopefully a mainstay. Hope he stays healthy, gets healthy, stays healthy, and is a mainstay there. And, remains one of the premier third basemen in a division that has some pretty good fielding third basemen up and down.
Yeah. Jace Peterson from the Brewers gets the 2 at third. We mentioned it before. He's a 3 at first, a 3 at second, and a 4 with a -1 arm in the corner outfield position. So Jace Peterson from a Strat-O-Matic standpoint is going to be a valuable player for you. Boy, if he had gotten the 3 in at least one of the outfield positions, that would have jacked his value up even more. We talked about Tommy Edman getting the 3 and Brendan Donovan a 3 at third for the Cardinals. Patrick Wisdom, we mentioned it before. I think for the Cubs, he gets the 3 at third. Luis Urias gets the 3 at third for the Brewers. Is that his brother on the Orioles?
I don't believe so, but
Okay.
I'll check.
Because they're both kind of like slick fielding infield type guys. He's also a 3 at second and a 4 at short.
It is brother Ramon Urias.
Oh, there. Okay, so I was right. Matt Reynolds, we didn't mention from the Reds. A 3 at second, a 3 at third, and a 4 at short, a 4 in left and right with a +1 arm. So he might have some usefulness if there's any hits on the card. Mike Moustakas has fallen off. He didn't play second at all this season. He spent mostly at third and hung out at first a little bit. He's down to a 4 now, as a guy who used to be a little bit better than that.
As of this taping, he's also designated for assignment today.
Oh, wow. Oh, I did not see that. There is no today. It's
as of this recording. Yes. As of this recording,
which we're not telling people when it was, because we're releasing these shows like piecemeal. But yes, well, I guess maybe he'll find a new home after somewhere, because he's a name that you recognize. But man, it's already been quite a few years for Mike Moustakas in Cincinnati after the whole first part of his career in KC. Somebody will pick him. He'll probably end up in San Francisco. It's December 23rd,
He's
by the
got
way.
1 year left.
But we didn't
Someone would
get
pick him
Judge
up at the
Correa, but we
minimum.
got Pascack
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah,
Whoever
they
wants him
gotta-
gets him at the minimum, and the Reds pick up
And
the
some
rest of
free
the salary.
socks.
yeah.
Free sock giveaway
Um,
too. Cisco. Wow.
Nico, we're not going to talk about Nico Horner yet, but it might be worth noting that he's a 4 at third because of what his number is at shortstop, which we'll get to. That'll be a whole that'll be this next portion of the segment. There's more on that in a moment, as Jerry likes to say. The versatile Christopher Morel from the Cubs gets a 3 at second and a 3 at third, a 4 at short, and a 4 in left and right, but he's a -3 arm. I kind of thought he'd at least get a 3 in left. I can't remember if he ever ended up walking the whole season. He had like none, or he had like, I think he probably had. Jerry's going to look it up. This is so good. He's just on top of it. He knows exactly where I'm going. I would say he probably had close to 500 plate appearances and less than 20 walks off the top of my head.
You know, he ended up with 38 walks.
Oh my goodness. How could I
Yeah.
be so wrong?
But 137 strikeouts.
How many plate appearances?
425.
Oh, this was actually that's way better than I thought. He was on a walk rampage.
But his
At some
position
point.
chart goes 8, 4, 5, 6, 7. So he played all those spots, and it's reflected in his defensive numbers.
Yeah. Oh, he's got the big arm. So he's got the infielder's arm playing outfield, but we'll say that might be good news there for Christopher Morel.
Cardinals fans won't like Juan Yepez getting the 5.
Yeah, I
won't.
don't think they care.
They like Yepez.
I know they do, but he's good because he pinch hits, and when he does hit, he gets on a roll. For shortstop, we gotta in our funky sort, we gotta make sure we look at the bottom of the sort there, because we do have a couple of ones. The aforementioned Nico Horner and Willie Adames from the Brewers. Adames is an interesting guy. He came over from Tampa. He really keyed the Brewers when he had gotten over there a couple of years ago. And there was some talk about like maybe him moving on or whatever. And they just like Craig Counsell just completely shut that down. He's like, no, he's not going anywhere. He's like the centerpiece of our team. So be quiet.
Yeah, imagine, Tampa was in a position where they're bringing up their number one, maybe the number one guy and prospect in all of the game. And then they could afford to move Adames and move him to a place where he could really have an impact, and he did. And to get the 1 and Horner getting the 1 is a good start. And then no other regulars with 2 or better at the shortstop position, which you really want to grab that. And Edman again being the one that people really wanted that to be a 2. Some St. Louis fans wanted that to be a 1. I think they're that might have been, might have been premature, but he's a good defensive player that I wouldn't be surprised if then he kind of started to fit into that 2-1 mold, playing shortstop every day, which I think will be his thing moving forward.
So, Dawg, the Cubs open the checkbook here a little bit, not crazily, but a little bit in the offseason. And if you listen to our NL East preview here, we mentioned when we did the Braves that Dansby Swanson was a 1 at short, and now he moves to Chicago. So I think the plan is for Nico Horner to move from short to second, but that's kind of a good position. I mean, I don't know. I'm not positive that he's going to end up there. Maybe he does end up at third. I guess you just first sort of think a shortstop would move to second. But again, Mets signed Carlos Correa. They're playing him at third. They're not playing him at second. Yankees a million years ago traded for A-Rod. They played him at third. He probably would have been just as good at second, but they had somebody already there, right? So they didn't do it. But in this case, the Cubs, yeah, there's like some guys, but like Nico Horner is better than them. Like he's better than whoever would be at third, and he's better than whoever would be at second. Either way, it's kind of a good spot to be in. The Cubs are hoarding shortstop 1s, right?
Yeah, I mean, just getting great defense on there is, I mean, honest, we've talked about this last season or two. Like, I'm still not entirely sure what the Cubs are driving towards. There's been a lot of sort of turmoil on the team. It seems like they're all in and then they're completely selling off, and then they're starting to work back again. And you want to think there's like some master plan behind it, and there's some good organizational minds that work there, but I don't know. We'll see. I mean, Swanson's a great player, a great pickup for the Cubs. I mean, he'll be a cornerstone player for him. So we'll see how they kind of build that around. And Horner's young enough; he can kind of move around and find their spot as well. So that could be a good good solid combo for some time to go.
If you're Nico Horner, you're like, man, I gotta want it short. Now I gotta move. Come on. Like, I want to play myself at short. Like,
I'm the only guy who's good out here.
Yeah. But just to talk Cubs for a second, I mean, they lose Wilson Contreras, right? He ends up with a 5-year deal in St. Louis. They keep Ian Happ, I guess, right? They have Seiya Suzuki. They try to go strong up the middle here, with Swanson at short, presumably Horner at second, and Cody Bellinger, who we don't know if he's going to hit, but for a year he's going to play Gold Glove type center field for Chicago. So they got to figure out the catching thing here a little bit. But otherwise, like maybe the moves are good. Like maybe that is how you put in a little centerpiece. I mean, if you're Marcus Stroman,
oh yeah, you love
you're
that.
friggin' overjoyed at these moves, right?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely, that's true. Maybe he'll actually pitch well for him. That'd be nice too.
Yeah, he was not so good. But he did
do a little bit shot out there in the back.
he did,
He kind of whines a little bit for a guy who's life's been okay to Marcus, and he tends to whine a little bit on the how things
but
turn out for him.
he listen, he put up when he was
He battles though. He battles.
and
I'm
he
rooting
had
for him, but he's got to whine a little bit less.
he had a good run in the middle of the season of about 10 or 12 starts where he looked like what they were hoping for, but a little too erratic. But listen, look at all the 4s and 5s and 3s that were playing behind them. The defense is going to be the Cubs defense. I think next year has a chance to improve the way the Yankees defense improved from year to year. And that made a dramatic difference. The Yankees won in the beginning of the year a lot of games that they probably shouldn't have won.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, too, actually, yeah. Well, both New York teams, right? Those we were talking there early in the season.
Yeah.
Big difference.
But there was the Mets were probably came into it a little better fielding team than the Yankees were the previous year. So the Mets definitely improved defensively, but the Yankees were like at the bottom of defense and they went to the top. The Cubs are going to the top defensively. I mean, they might not hit, but that's a damn good defensive team.
Yankees played a 4 E22 at short all year in 2021 in Gleyber Torres. He went from a 4 to a guy they rated a 2. Now, whether you can argue with the rating for IKF as a 2, but you're right, Riz. If the Cubs can do the same kind of thing and take those spots that had lesser fielders there, and now you plug in some 1s and some 2s around there, you'll see the difference in the pitching. And pitching all of a sudden becomes better when the guys field the balls that are hit at them.
They got guys that can turn double plays even with the limited shift. So let's say more balls. I expect we're going to see more balls put in play this year. I think we're going to start the move toward that again because of the banning of the shift. I expect we're going to see guys that would take a pitch that, they think is an inch outside and say, oh, wait, I think I could put that thing in play and get a hit. Well, now they got if more balls in play, that becomes advantage Cubs every time it happens. Now, is it going to be enough for them to even have a 500 record? It'll depend a lot on the pitching, but the defense certainly looks good. Yeah,
just kind of talking, Riz. I mean, just looking over at who they had there. I mean, had a couple 3s at second. Obviously had Horner at short, so you swap 1 for a 1. But you had a couple 3s at second, third base. 3s and 4s, center field 4s, primarily across their regulars out there. So yeah, and you look at the pieces that they brought in. I mean, you brought in 2 1s, right, to come into the at minimum high a strong 2 to each of those key spots at the middle. That's a big improvement.
And Jerry, to finish it out, the most notable, of course, of the rest here in the NL Central, the one everybody wants to know about is O'Neal Cruz, the 6'7" shortstop, gets the 4. He did play a tiny wink there in left field, and he got a 5 with a 0 arm. That only intrigues me for one reason, and it's because maybe they're projecting him. Like if they don't like him so much at short, and they decide that they're going to, move like a Brian Reynolds to the Yankees. The Yankees have 2 budding shortstops that are big time prospects, that are top level prospects that you're going to want in a deal like that. And maybe, a pitcher or 2. So, that left field 5 for O'Neal Cruz, I'm thinking he's definitely got an outfield arm. Right.
Yeah, I mean, he played one inning there.
But why would you even screw around with it if it wasn't in the back of your mind somewhere? Why would you ever take that your prized guy like him and Cabrian Hayes, right? Like, why would you
wonder what that game was? I mean, one inning of one game could have been the 9th inning of a game. I mean, I think, he played 79 games at short. So he played half the season. He was there, regular shortstop when healthy and when, the plans were going as planned. There was some discussion on him because we tweeted him as one of the preview guys, I think, of interest to people. People have seen the highlights. I mean, it breaks your face a little bit watching him field the ball at short and throw it to first. It's getting there faster than like you have in your mind how long it takes for a ball to go from the shortstop's hand to first base. And you've seen some guys, you've seen the Shawan Dunstons, and you've seen a couple guys that when they kind of ratcheted it up, it kind of gave you a little start. That one play, like maybe it was the camera work, whatever it was, like the ball was zip, and it was like in his hand, the first baseman's mitt before you expected it. So is his future at short? I think it is. I think until you don't want to take a guy off short until you have to. It's like you see these third basemen sometimes that, they're getting 4s and 5s because they're keeping the guy there just another year, just to see, can we make him a third baseman? Because the last thing you want to do, once you move the guy to first, he's never getting off first. No one's getting from first and going somewhere else. Once you move a guy there, that's it. You move a guy to left field, that's probably it. You're probably not moving from left field to anywhere. It's the bottom of the defensive spectrum. So I think his age, his age 23 season, so next year will be his age 24 season. I think he's your shortstop until proven otherwise.
I do too, but if a deal presents itself, and it very well could. I mean, if the Yankees are they got a few guys that they could put out there, and if the one guy that they don't want to put out there is Jason Dominguez, who's certainly the guy that the Pirates are going to want in the deal, if they're giving up an outfielder, maybe they say, well, we'll take Volpe instead as the A level prospect. Grade A, not class A baseball playing.
Maybe he goes to center field,
and then maybe
center field.
Right.
Yeah.
He's got the Clemente arm. I mean, that would be something, right? But I don't know. That just, again, we talk about it. This is where Strat, you see something in Strat and you're like, wait a minute, I have an idea. Maybe this is what somebody's thinking.
Yeah.
So I'm sure the Pirates brass is probably either listening to the show or checking out the Strat ratings and be like, oh yeah, we played O'Neal Cruz that one inning in left field. So now we're going to trade Brian Reynolds to the Yankees and get a shortstop.
Deal.
This is that time where we talk about, big arms and, that all those throws, it's at a cost, right? And sometimes your arm gets sore, your body, and you just can't make it through. You need Gatto Acupuncture and Wellness in Glen Rock, New Jersey to help you out if you're here in the Bergen County area. Dr. Melissa, she will find out about your health and wellness. Yeah, she's like, stick out your tongue. Let me see your tongue. I'm like, what do you need to say? She's so good. I can't even explain it. Book online, gattoacu.com, or call 551-212-3845, Gatto Acupuncture and Wellness, Glen Rock, New Jersey. Then just down the road, when you're feeling so good, you're going to need your ride to be nice and clean as the, well, at least at the moment, the winter weather is upon us. Big Ed's Car Wash at 17-16 River Road in Fairlawn. There is no better. His 118-foot tunnel will leave your car looking beautiful outside, and the wonderful staff will clean it inside as well. Big Ed's Car Wash, Fairlawn, New Jersey. Tell them Diamond Diehard sent you. If you're new to the area, or you're looking to be new to the Pascack Valley, the Northern Valley, or just anywhere in northern New Jersey, then the Mascolo Group is your way to gain entrance or exit if you want, or if you're just looking to move your properties. Michele and Gary will hook you up. Go to GaryMascolo.com. You'd think I'd get it right after the 1,000th time doing this. Or call 201-615-3665, the Mascolo Group. And of course, once you've moved and you need to send out those change of address cards or any printing and promotional needs that you have, you go to fmsgraphics.com, a family-run, family-owned business for the last 50 plus years. fmsgraphics.com, all of your printing and promotional needs done family style for a long time. You can count on them. You can count on us now to finish up with the outfield in the NL Central. And at first glance, we don't see any ones out there, but we see a guy that is another Cardinal. It's like they're always Cardinals, right? Tyler O'Neill. He was banged up a little bit last year, but he still gets the 2 out there. He's a guy who's like, you know, if he maintains any sort of like long-term health, he's a 1. I'm a little surprised, not at the 2. They also gave him a 4 in center, and he's got a 0 arm, Jerry. So Tyler O'Neill with the 2. He had to have been a 1 previously, right?
I'll check. I don't know. I mean, he's another one of those guys that kind of like, if you don't follow them that closely, he's just kind of like a guy, you know, he hits 7th, he hits 8th. You don't know kind of where you're going to see him. He was a 1 last year. Had the -1 arm last year as well. So he's just like another one of those like guys in St. Louis that if he played for Pittsburgh or if he played for Cincinnati, you wouldn't know who he is at all. If he played for the Yankees or the Mets, he might be someone, you know, that's really getting more attention all across.
He might be Harrison Bader if he.
Yeah, exactly. So he does get the other. Harrison Bader is the perfect example of a guy that you just don't know until you see him play every day how really good he is. And I think it maybe fits the same way with O'Neill, who you said he's gotten the down to the 2 in left field, but still a big part of what they do.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, Lars Nootbaar also, I didn't realize that he had played. I thought he was only a right fielder, but he did play enough in left to get the 2. He's a 3 in center. Albert Almora Jr., Dawg knows him from his short stint there with the Mets. He's a 2 everywhere in the outfield with a -2. Nootbaar also a -2 arm. And let's see, is that I just got to make sure.
Yeah, he played mostly right, like you said. He played 11 games in center, only 2 games in left.
Okay, so that explains it. Tyrone Taylor from the Brewers, 2 -2, and he's a 2 everywhere in the outfield. He's a 1 in the basic game in center and right, so that sometimes bodes well for somebody's future. Sometimes when the guy's a 1 in the basic and a 2 in the advanced, you could see if he's, especially if it's a younger player, they might advance up the food chain in terms of the strat fielding. Ian Happ, my birthday twin, the 2 in left, good for him. -1 arm there, so it's like Nico Horner and Ian Happ and Wilson Contreras for the Cubs. Those were your fielders. And we'll see what Suzuki is. Another Dawg favorite, Jake Marisnik. A 2 everywhere, but I added back the additional players and the computer players. That's because I want to see something when we do center, so I probably should have avoided that here. Dawg.
Sorry, I was getting distracted by the Diamond Dog. Is all sorts of fired up. There's a brown truck outside, so.
Oh, okay. Dawg, Christian Yelich. Christian Yelich is a 3, left field only for the Brewers, and now the +1 arm, and just it's kind of crazy, like that he was an MVP not that long ago, and a guy that you just figured was always slated for like at least a 2 and left, and usually maybe even a 1, and even with the arm, but now it's like. It's just surprising to me to just see the 3 there. I think this is 2 years running, maybe.
Yeah, sliding down, right? So it's tough to see the guys we recognize and stuff. But that's the good thing about Strat, right? Is it takes the it takes the memory out of it and uses the real data, right? And that kind of shows it out. That
Now,
that's clearly the case on.
Dawg, when you see a Yelich, right, and then you see the deals that are being given out, and I'm talking from a Met standpoint here, right? Because they're giving out long-term deals like they're hotcakes and sausage at McDonald's in 1989, right? I mean, it's like you just can't wait to get enough. And everybody's taking part. Everybody's got a seat at the table there. I mean, you got a 12-year deal at third. You got 12 years left, right, on Lindor's deal, or was he 10? He's got
10 now. I think he's 10 now. Yeah.
He's got 10 now, or did it kick in yet? Or he's got 9 left.
I think it kicks in this year, if I remember correctly. So I think I think the 10 starts this year.
Right. You got 8 years in center, right?
Yep.
Who else am I missing here? You got Alonso up after this? No, after next year. After next year,
it'd be a good year to sign him and extend him. It'd be a good time to do it. But yeah, it's funny though with the Mets. They kind of went. They extended the position players, really, as they went like long term on that, but not so much in the pitching side, right? So they've kind of barbelled it with the older short term contracts for the top end pitchers.
But does it?
The 5 years, right?
Yeah. But does it worry you, like when you look at a Yelich and you're like, oh my God, this guy is literally like MVP and MVP caliber, and now he's just not, and it's not that long, right? Like, and like you could end up with, like, is this the way these contracts start to age? Is he like a guy that you look at? It's great now. Like you don't want to say no. You're like, wow, we got friggin' Correa, Lindor, this guy, that guy, but I look at a Yelich and I wonder.
That's a great point. I mean, it's interesting with like either one of the Lindor, Correa makes you feel that having both. Like it feels like Lindor, the back half of Lindor sort of felt like he can slide over to third, right? Doesn't have quite the range anymore to kind of do that, so he can slide over to third. But you've already done that with Correa, right? So like Nimmo, you can get away with it. Like you're right, in 3 or 4 years, he's probably gonna be over in a corner outfield. Either go for Marte or displace one of the guys in left or something like that. But it's a question when you start to stack it, and that is the one. I think you're spot on that. That's one they have to kind of wonder when you have a Correa there as well, that how long are both those guys going to be continuing to be, on top of the league? I mean, you had Jeter and Rodriguez, right? I mean, that's the argument: is are they the new Jeter Rodriguez? I don't know, we'll see, but that's unusual to get that, right? And that's a fair point that will you be able to get that sort of continued talent that long?
Right. Probably not unprecedented, Jerry, but definitely unusual, right?
Yeah, I mean, take it back to Yelich where you started. I mean, he has 6 years left on his contract. And I think that you sign those long-term deals thinking that the last couple of years, the last 2 or 3 years, you're going to have made up for it with the production in the first few years. So, I mean, look at even Judge at 9 years, or any of these guys with the 12 or the 13-year, 10-year contracts. But I don't think with Yelich, they expected things to turn sour in his age 29 season, which is kind of when they started to turn. And now you're looking at 6 more at 26 before the $6 million buyout. So it's almost like another season when you buy it out and don't do the 20. Like that's a different, that's the point you bring up, Joe, it makes sense because yeah, you can look at those long-term contracts and not worry so much about the back end when it's the last 3 years out of 10. But when it's the first 3 years, I mean, he's been like a little bit over a league average player the last 2 years. And that's fine. but not when you're Milwaukee tying up $26 million. That's different than the Mets tying up $26 million into a guy. Milwaukee went all in on him. It got the MVP year, got the almost MVP year, and then you've gotten 3 May years, one almost a complete, 2021, and a lot of injuries, missed a lot of time, but have not been the kind of production. And now he's went 3 to a 2. He actually was a 2 last year and left.
Oh, he
Back
was.
to
Okay.
3. Yeah, he went 3, 2, 3.
Okay.
It was a 3 and right last year. So, he's now also at the last stop on the defensive, unless you move him to first at some point, but I don't see him as an infielder. The last stop in the defensive spectrum in the outfield. You're not going to get that whole package that you expected when you signed that long-term deal.
Like I mind it less if he's playing left as a 1 or a 2, if his offensive production is going to dip a little earlier. But it again, it just shows you that these long-term contracts are not without risk. Dawg, there is a guy, I mean, we talked about him before the show starts. There's one guy who's a -5 outfield arm. And he's in the sort right above Christian Yelich. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Aristides Aquino. So the -5 cannon out there. Only one in MLB, I believe, when I was doing a quick sort on there. So and obviously only one in the National League and in the Central Division. But yeah, the three -5, that is pretty spiffy from out there. 3 in left and right. So yeah, for a right fielder with a -5 cannon, that's a real advantage for your pitching.
And he's mostly a right fielder. Played
if you had that 3 in center, you really, I mean, he's 4 in center, so it takes it just down. But boy, that would be tempting. You had like you take the 2 with a flat arm or a +1 arm versus a 3 with a -5 cannon. I don't know, it's tough one.
Yeah, you're gonna save base advancement.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now he's got to be able to hit as much as you'd like him to hit. Remember, he had like a crazy, like as soon as he came up for the first time a few years ago, he went on like a crazy home run tear. Like, and he's got the big arm, so it's kind of cool. He's kind of like he's a fun player,
Yeah, exactly.
He's sort of like, he kind of reminds you of Puig a little bit, with the big arm. Could use a little bit better range, a lot of pop,
Hit the ball and keep running till just keep running.
It's
Don't let get you out. Keep running.
The 197 average doesn't really help me out a ton right now.
Well, that's
609 OPS.
Yeah, that's the trick to it, right? Like you're not escaping. But let's look at we'll move on from left and we will open up center field. Look at me. Gotta be center field. Not that many guys here. Like usually you'd expect the pool to be a little bit bigger, but especially when you have some of the lesser light teams here, some teams that really struggled. A bunch of 2s. We talked about a few of them. I put the additional players and everything back because I wanted to see if they changed the ratings, Jerry, for the Harrison Bader, but I don't know if he's listed here. He should have. I was thinking
he's on a mix. They gave him a 2.
Let's see. I thought I added the mixes back in here.
Yeah, they gave him a 2.
Oh, there he is. Okay, he is a 2. So he's a 2 -1.
Just missed so much time, but I mean, Riz, you were one of the first proponents to really love the trade. A lot of us just looked at trading a left-hand starter who's in the middle of your rotation for a guy who, was injured and you don't know if he's going to play or what have you. But I think that, as good as Montgomery is, and he's going to be a 3, 4, 5 pitcher for hopefully a long time. I mean, everybody wants him to be great. I think depending on whatever extension may happen with Bader after the one more year he has when he gets to his free agent year, I think you're going to have people love him in New York. Now, it didn't hurt that he had his best time in the postseason. Go 1 for the first 25 to start the year next year and see how much of a fan favorite he is then. But he's a guy that, had a lot of history with the Cardinals, and now, he's moved on.
And by Jerry saying the first guy who liked to trade, I was the only guy. For a long time. Until the guy became
on the show.
Yeah, even on the show. Yeah, until the guy became Babe Ruth in the playoffs. I will say this. I'll say this. He did not look like himself in the field for the Yankees for the most part.
That might take a bit of learning, especially, Yankee Stadium is a unique stadium too, right? So it may take him a little bit,
and being fully healthy, sometimes that manifests in the field more, running around in center field, like you can hide that at third or at first.
Yeah,
but
I think
center field, you got to be your prime. Like, you don't see too many guys who can play center field at not their full. So he gets the off season to be healthy. He's even been seen out at was it a Ranger game or Knicks game? He was at one of the games wearing a old timey Yankee sweater, like a Highlander sweater. It was awesome. He's he's from the area, so he's
from Bronxville.
He's ingrained. But these other center, the other guy who you have in there is Greg Allen.
His 528 OPS better improve. He's not gonna be so ingrained. just keeping it real here, yo.
Keeping it real, dog. That's what we want. Want you to keep it real. But I think the Yankees will be happy with him. And then, like you mentioned, Riz, there's a lot of twos. A lot of them are not the starting players, though. Other than Albert Almora, a regular, and a couple other guys, Tyrone Taylor, who has the two, and all across the outfield. Most of your twos and even some of your threes are computer only players, but Nootbaar gets the 3 in center, but you'll say he's really a right fielder playing a little bit of center and left, and the rest are the unplayable 4s down the line there. So not as deep in center as we saw a couple of the other divisions.
Yeah, and that's to be expected, right? It's a hard position. Not everybody ought to be playing center field, right? Dog.
Look at me. I can be center field.
We switch over to right, and Hunter Renfroe on the move from Milwaukee, but a 2-3 in right. He also has first base numbers, but good defensively, as you'd expect. He's always a candidate to be a 1 out there. I think he's had 1s in the past. So good job, Hunter Renfroe. Dylan Carlson, we didn't mention. He's kind of the reason why the Cardinals were willing to trade Harrison Bader. And I think, between the emergence of Nootbaar and right and the decision to play Carlson in center regularly, that's probably was the whole key. But Carlson, a 3 in center, it was also a 2 in right with a -2 arm. So Nootbaar and Carlson, very similar profiles right there. We talked about Seiya Suzuki. He does get the 2-3 in right for the Cubs. So again, their defense, I don't know. Does defense win championships, like the Geico commercial would say? Are we turning into our dads? Yeah, we are. And if the Cubs win the championship, it's going to be based on defense and a whole lot of other crap going the right way. But they definitely are. They are stockpiling real good top level defensive players. That's pretty much, I would say, the theme for what we've talked about here. If you're a Cubs fan, for the NL Central 2022 Strat-O-Matic Ratings Extravaganza.
And one of those guys was not, however, Jackson Frazier, who used to be Clint Frazier, and the change of name didn't do him as well as he would have hoped. He had a rocky time here in New York, an up and down rocky time here in New York. Part of it was the concussions, and part of it was being injured all that time. But he also kind of talked his way out. Also, he tried on with the Cubs, and they non-tendered him. So his 4+1 in right and left are not part of the Cubs' future in the outfield. As crazy as it seems from where he was supposed to be as a prospect and a prime person who came over, sadly his time with the Cubs has met the same kind of end as it met with the Yankees.
Yeah, that was in the 2016 trade deadline. The Yankees were sellers. They sold off Aroldis Chapman to the Cubs, and they sold off Andrew Miller to the then Indians. And Clint Frazier was the main guy they got back for Miller, who was absolutely just unbelievably lights out in that stretch. And those two guys ended up battling it out till the last outs of the World Series, pretty much, or at least key outs in the biggest games. And yeah, I thought, I was high on Frazier, the bat speed and blah, blah, blah. And, he's close to flaming out here.
I mean,
and
remember how good he was in the COVID year. I mean, the
Yeah.
COVID year, he was a very important guy. He helped them get to the playoffs. I mean, they were almost, kind of teetering there. And he had a 150 OPS in the, he played 40 of the games, so he played 2/3 of the games, but he was a guy that, they had high hopes for it. He, in some ways, he kind of never got a chance, but then in other ways, they said, here's your shot. I know he had the concussion and he had kind of 2 lost seasons, but when he really could have kind of just taken it by storm in 21, he didn't. And then you thought maybe a new beginning in Chicago could be lower pressure because they're not as good, but it didn't work out. And who knows? Someone takes a chance on him. A guy like that, maybe he's only 20. He'll be in his age 28 season, so he's still really in what could be the prime. And sometimes you look at the Baseball Reference. Sometimes that's the last line you ever see on a guy, and sometimes it turns around. We had a discussion when he was a 5 3 years ago in the outfield, and he deserved his 5. And then he was, against all odds, a Gold Glove finalist, which was maybe silly anyway for him to be a Gold Glove finalist. But I said, if he's a Gold Glove finalist, John Garcia, you've got to make him a 3, don't you? He was a Gold Glove finalist, and every time he would make a play in the field, John would send me a gif of somebody doing a 5-finger discount. So hopefully hopefully he resurrects his career. You'll like to have somebody, but he gets the 4+1. That's a long way of concluding. But I had to get Jackson Frazier in there just for the New York connection here.
There you go. I gotta throw in 42 guys getting numbers as well. 1/3 of all the batters in the division have right field numbers. Scrolling down, I'm like, when does this end?
Part of it is that there's only 13 or 12 active guys on the team's roster outside of the pitchers. They do 13. I think 13 pitchers you're allowed now, 13 and 13. So that's 4 guys. There's a DH in the National League too. So every guy's got to, eventually get out there in some place. You got to put them somewhere.
24 of them, 4s and 5s.
4s and 5s.
Let's get the carousel going.
And no once.
Franmil Reyes got a 5+1. I love Franmil Reyes.
All right, we're going to wrap up the NL Central. Who knew that we had that much to talk about with the NL Central? But it turns out there's, if you dig, we didn't even have to dig that hard to find a lot of compelling stories out there. And we're doing that throughout this 6-part series. So if you haven't caught all of it, we encourage you to do so. And the way to do that is to subscribe and follow on whatever outlet you are watching or listening to us. That is going to wrap it up. Follow Jerry Milani at GBPackJerry on Twitter. You can follow the dog, Jeff Healy, at Jeff Healy 8. That's the number 8. And me, Joe Rizzo, at Diamond Diehards. And that's everywhere on social media. You can find Diamond Diehards that way. For Jerry Milani and the dog, Jeff Healy, this is Joe Rizzo. Diamond Diehards is out.